There we go. Hi, hello. Today this is the Deep Dive, which is a series of streams and videos in which I spend a lot of time talking about a game or a series of games, and we play while we're talking, but where I really kind of unpack, from my perspective, why a game is important, why it's good at what it does, and sort of try and chronicle its growth, its progression. And one of the games that, at least for me, is kind of epitomizes a very sharp and very well-designed game from a number of perspectives is the Binding of Isaac, which is the game that we're going to be diving deep into tonight. Fair warning, even though this stream is rated mature, or it's flagged as such, I feel obliged to open with the warning or caution that Binding of Isaac deals with religious imagery in perhaps a negative way. It deals with scatological imagery. So if you're not comfortable with God or body fluids, this is probably not a game you'll want to watch. So, just a fair warning. If the idea of a cartoon child crying to defeat enemies and flies isn't appealing to you, well, that's not a good thing to. That's not a good gate to set up, because most people would be not into that. Bear with me, basically, is what I'm saying. But if you feel like any of those things might offend your sensibilities, then this might not be the thing you want to watch. But I suspect most people will be okay with this. There's like a small sliver of people who I don't even think watch Twitch that would be offended by the Binding of Isaac. So anyway, let's not get political. Let's stay on task. Binding of Isaac. So, what is Binding of Isaac? I'm glad you asked. I always keep meaning to get these ready before I start. So, 2011. God damn. So 2011, Binding of Isaac came out. It was originally a Flash game. Well, it was developed as a Flash game in Adobe Flash, and we'll see that when we play. So what we're going to do is there are two versions of Binding of Isaac. There's the original that was developed in Flash and launched on Steam, and then there was not really a sequel, basically a reboot that was developed in C++, also released on Steam. That was Binding of Isaac Rebirth. This is the original Binding of Isaac. So let's hop right into it. Now, I think it's perhaps very important to start to set the tone for what this. So, if you've never seen this game before, I'm sorry that you haven't, because it's a very good game. But I feel like it's important to set the tone. So we're going to do that by playing the intro movie real quick, which actually requires me to quit and launch again. So, because I feel like it's important to set the tone correctly.
Isaac and his mother lived alone in a small house on a hill. Isaac kept to himself, drawing pictures and playing with his toys as his mom watched Christian broadcasts on the television. Life was simple, and they were both happy. That was until the day Isaac's mom heard a voice from above. Your son has become corrupted by sin. He needs to be saved. I will do my best to save him, my lord, Isaac's mother replied, rushing into Isaac's room, removing all that was evil from his life. Again, the voice called to her. Isaac's soul is still corrupt. He needs to be cut off from all that is evil in this world and confess his sins. I will follow your instructions, Lord. I have faith in thee, Isaac's mother replied, as she locked Isaac in his room, away from the evils of the world. One last time, Isaac's mom heard the voice of God calling to her. You've done as I've asked, but I still question your devotion to me. To prove your faith, I will ask one more thing of you. Yes, Lord, anything, Isaac's mother begged. To prove your love and devotion, I require a sacrifice. Your son, Isaac, will be this sacrifice. Go into his room and end his life as an offering to me to prove you love me above all else. Yes, Lord, she replied, grabbing a butcher's knife from the kitchen. Isaac, watching through a crack in his door, trembled in fear. Scrambling around his room to find a hiding place, he noticed a trapdoor to the basement hidden under his rug. Without hesitation, he flung open the hatch, just as his mother burst through his door and threw himself down into the unknown depths below.
So, it's, and I don't know if, so the lead designer, the brain behind this entire game, oh good, I didn't actually notice this little note that I have permission to stream. Great. This is essentially Edmund Macmillan's brainchild. This, and of course the Rebirth version of it, it's his game. He had people help him make it, but it is his game. It's his Isaac, right? And he's a part of Team Meat. He's responsible for Super Meat Boy, for Gish, for a number of games that are very popular, very well done, very very sharply designed. And this was after Super Meat Boy. So this was his next big thing after Super Meat Boy. So yeah, the story of this is not really important. That's not really why most people, 99% of people, play this game. It's an interesting backdrop upon which to set, however, because he's taking a hard look at Christian zealots and parents who hear God and believe too much in their Sunday, like the super churches. There's a word for it. I'm just stuck on it, but you know what I mean. Like there are people who become lost in this religion in a very, in a sometimes dangerous way, and this plays in that space very very freely. Like he's clearly has no qualms about contextualizing this character as an overzealous Christian who hears God. However, as we're seeing in the intro sequence, this is all a child's drawing, and we see Isaac himself drawing this and in his room and looking happy. So one could even call into question if this, not that the rich tapestry of the Binding of Isaac lore is a thing we need to make sure is kept intact, but is this just a kid having fun? Like, again, this won't be the focus of most of tonight's look at the game, but it's important to kind of set the backdrop. But is this just a kid drawing comics and coming up with crazy characters? Honestly, I find it more enjoyable if we think of it that way, because it's a little dark otherwise. Anyway, let's actually talk about the game itself. So, Binding of Isaac is probably the quintessential roguelike, and nowadays that's such an overused term. Roguelike is flung at anything that remotely has procedurally generated content that has, you know, permadeath. It's slapped onto so many things that it kind of has lost a bit of its meaning. But I'll kind of go into why I think Binding of Isaac deserves that label, and why it's probably one of the reasons that label is used so much today, because people are trying to, in my opinion, chase what Binding of Isaac accomplished. So, there's a lot of pieces that are around the core of the game, but let's look at the core of the game by playing it. And this is the Flash engine, or the Adobe Flash / ActionScript platform. So you'll see the style kind of reflects a very painterly / animated. Say that twice? Yes. Animated style. And the frame rate's a little chuggy. It's not. They had and Edmund and his team were pretty open about this during development, that they hit some limitations in terms of optimizing it, because Flash is not meant to drive a very complicated video game. Not just complicated from a number of objects on screen, but all the things that are happening in the background and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, let's play Binding of Isaac. So don't even need to get to the main characters. The other characters. Isaac we'll just start there. So this is a game that wears its influences on its sleeve. Anyone who has played video games in the 80s will instantly recognize what this is kind of aping, what this is kind of what style this is parodying. That'd be the original Legend of Zelda on the NES. The top-down perspective with the hearts and the grid map in the upper left. This is very much what Legend of Zelda NES. Like, if you fired up if this was a recorded video, I would post in a screenshot of Legend of Zelda NES to show off. But trust me in that, it's a very similar. Very similar. So this game is about moving your character, in this case Isaac, the crying boy here, and you have the ability to shoot tears, an infinite amount of tears, in one of 4 cardinal directions. That is the majority of what you're doing the entire game, and they actually show you here. It is also worth noting that the original, because it was Flash and not a full-fledged game engine, did not have joystick support. So I actually am using Key to Joy, which is a program that will map keyboard inputs onto a joystick, which is what I'm using. So I'm moving, attacking, and then you use a bomb, which you start with one of, and then you will eventually get an item that you can use. So let's kind of walk around and do some stuff, and I'll explain it. So it's a series of rooms, and this whole stream is going to basically be 30% of me explaining what this is, because I feel like it's really important that everyone who watches this understands what this is doing before we can talk about why it's doing it so well. So I just got an item, and we got the name of the item and a very tiny description of it, and that's it. And we'll just leave that there for now, because that's a pretty key component of the Binding of Isaac formula. So enemies don't have health bars. I destroy these piles of poop that are around to get items in them. It's just the world that we're playing here. So the goal is of each level is to get to the boss room, which is denoted here by the skull door. Beat the boss, move on to the next floor. There is an end. This is not an endless game. This is a game that we're in the basement. We're going to keep going down until we get to whatever is down there. And the maps are procedurally generated. So this is a random map. So yeah, let's go fight a boss, and then I'll kind of dig deeper into a few things. So the bosses do have health bars at least, which is a blessing. I could die here because he does one heart per hit, and yep, no. I wouldn't really said. Okay, so not a whole lot confusing here. Fought the boss with my abilities, and so it's the core main gameplay mechanic is essentially a bullet hell, or a shoot 'em up / bullet hell, where I'm dodging projectiles while shooting my own in order to damage the enemies to accomplish the goals. So let's actually take this floating horse head here to demonstrate. There are I don't know the exact number, and it varies from version to version, but there are a extraordinarily large amount of items in Binding of Isaac. And the first time you play it, and we'll kind of get to the whole item pool and stuff, but the first time you play it, well, every time you play it, but especially the first time, you have no idea what this item does. If I had never seen this horse head before, I would have no idea what this horse head does. The game is offering me no information about it. It's just sitting there floating, looking at me. Even when I take it, there are two pieces of information that we're given. It'll be on the top middle and the lower right. A pony, space to use. So we're not even being given a description of it in this case. There's occasionally a short description, but so much of what Binding of Isaac does, and so much of where it succeeds, and I'll say this once and I won't say it anymore. This is all my opinion. I'm not going to say that the internet community agrees with this. Everyone believes this, but many people agree, and I think there's definitely some things that a lot of people would agree. But this is all my opinion, which I shouldn't have to say, but I feel is important because I'm going to really kind of unpack this. Right. So in not teaching you or in not telling you what the item does, the game is effectively setting you up to be doing this multiple times, in that it wants you to learn what these items are. And not just by telling you what they do, say, hey, this is a horse head, I know from playing it that, actually now I'm trying to remember because there are so many items, that I think it lets you, well, first of all, it lets me float around. This is actually we didn't really encounter this previously, but this lets me float above objects. Now I can fetch things that are behind rocks, and if there are pits, I can go over them. That's the main thing that this item does. Okay, and it also has, so there are passive items and there are active items. The first item I got in this treasure room earlier was and we can actually see it. It won't let me. It won't give me the name of it, but this was the thing. I think it was like they live inside, I think was the name of it. That gives me a fly that hangs around me right now, as you see, and lets me occasionally, when I'm doing my crying projectiles, it'll let me occasionally shoot out a fly, I believe. Let's do, or as I take damage, see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I have to learn what this thing does by using it, and by being hurt by things and seeing what happens. And at first that might sound like bad design. Like, well, shouldn't you tell the player, what this does, and just tell them this horse does this, and if you take damage, this will happen. But we get these little vignettes as we go between levels. But in not telling me exactly what everything does, and forcing me to play with these tools, both the passive and the active, it's encouraging me to have directly interact with the systems in the game to find that out. I need to take damage to see if that impacts it. I need to hit things with it. I need to basically it puts me in the position to try things out, right? Like, okay, I have this horse head. Does it like, and it's an activated thing. So what happens if I activate it? Should I try and activate it when I'm over a pit? Should I try and activate it when I'm near at a boss? Like, it leads to this kind of like mini exploration of this item to figure out what it does. And that's very rewarding because there are no bad items. Like, there's no... With most of what I'm going to say will have an asterisk after, because there are some items that could be considered bad, or some that are actually bad. There's a very small portion that are actually bad for you, but 99% of the items are things that will help you during your run. And so it's not like, do I want this or not? Because there's some choice to that. There are some instances, I think more so in the later game, where you're given a choice of items and you have to choose which one, and the other one is no longer an option. But in general, you're basically going to be just scooping stuff up, right? So it's not so much a choice of which item do I want. It's, I've been given this item. How do I use it best, right? And in order to learn how to use it best, the game can't teach you that without, lengthy tutorials and you learn how to use an item best through experience. So by positioning you to not know anything about item, just here's a picture, here's a brief blurb, you can maybe kind of guess what it does, but go try it out, right? Go play, go in the pool. And that encourages you to do that, and that encourages you to play with the item, and you will probably die if you fuck up and get killed using it the wrong way. Well, now you know that, because you will see that item again. There is a pool. So the game starts when you first launch the game for the first time, and you've never played it. Those are silly things that just jump into the fire. There is. So the items that you can get, there are basically two pools of items, and we won't get too technical with this because there's actually a pretty, we can get pretty in the weeds here, but there are basically, we'll call them special items and normal items. Special items are ones you can find after boss fights, in treasure rooms, and occasionally when you're playing normally. Normal items are stuff like the hearts, the keys, the bombs. These pills, which are basically a consumable, and we'll get to the pills in a second. So yeah, it's so yes. So there's a pool of special items. The regular items don't really change much. Let's say there's about 30 when you start the game for the first time. And you're like learning the systems, you're going down to the cellar, you're kind of figuring stuff out. There's a pool of 20 items, or 20 or 30, whatever. And yeah, so there is a huge array of Steam achievements. Just achievements in general, little goals that you can accomplish, whether it be reaching a floor for the first time, beating a certain boss for the first time, doing a run as a certain character, doing a run without taking damage, just anything you can think of, any sort of challenge-y aspect that you can think of. We'll give you an achievement, and we'll add an item to the pool that you have not seen before. So as you're doing stuff, as you're playing with these items and learning how they work and learning the systems of the game, you're slowly adding items to this pool that will show up. So it's a very rewarding progression that not only as I'm going through these levels and learning how this stuff works, I am also I'm adding things to find, right? I get to enjoy learning how these things work, and I get to unlock new things. And this is not like beat the game or beat the final boss. Like, sure, there are achievements and items attached to those, but so many, at least in Binding of Isaac, the first. I don't remember the exact progression of the second one. I think it was similar. At least in the first one, you were unlocking stuff all the time. It takes a lot of effort to reach the first boss, the first like actual boss of the game. There are two bosses, but the first real boss you meet, you may have added 10 items to your pool at that point, or you may not have. Like so basically every point of progression had an opportunity to add an item to the pool, and the items can do a huge variety of, like, they play in every kind of space that you can imagine. The one we have here lets me fly around. Obviously, the horseman was, I think, there's a series of bosses that you could fight. We'll get to that progression as well, but right, yeah, I just did it's a charge. I don't want to burn the key on that. So, I don't actually have a key at all yet. It's kind of a bummer. So, some more things to cover. So yeah, so just that system alone, I think, is one of the things that makes this game so satisfying to play. And I think the thing that gets overlooked the most when games try and copy the progression system of a game like Binding of Isaac or a game like Rogue, oh good, keys now, which deals in, maintaining progression after death or through death, or a reason to do runs of a game. Yeah. Okay, so you have these little bastards here. This will explode. Alright, so some mechanical things. I used my item in a previous room, my horse. You can only have one active item at a time. It has the little charge bars on the right and the upper right. These here. These refill after clearing rooms for the first time, so there's kind of a built-in cooldown basically around every item. Other than any of them. You may notice some of the enemies are colored differently. There was a blue little spider face in the previous room. Enemies that are colored differently have they're like elites. If you were going to use like a Warcraft or a Diablo parallel, there are slightly stronger versions of the same enemy that also have more health, or they'll explode when they die. There's a variety of things that they can do. So again, here we are. There's almost every floor will have a treasure room, and it'll just give you an item. Now I can choose not to take it, and if it's an activated item, I can always swap it back out if I don't like it eventually. But if it's a passive item, which this is not, it's always there. Aside from activated items, which are what's here in the space in the space slot, which is my horse I'm riding around on, everything else is cumulative. So now I have the horse. These first two items that I collected were passive. This is the one that I believe gives me a fly when I get hit, and this drop of yellow liquid, which could be anything. And it looks like, yeah. So I'm crying out yellow liquid. It seems to be a bit faster actually. So there is a very simple stat system in Binding of Isaac. We have 4 stats: player speed, projectile speed, projectile damage, and projectile. I think it's so. Yeah, obviously speed here is maxed out now. The damage that they do and the range they have. So my range is very, very low, which is why they fall down to the ground very quickly. So just those 4 stats. Now, technically, if I was, so what this kind of segues into building your gear for a run, or being selective about the things that you pick up for a run. If you just picked up everything during a Binding of Isaac run, you'd probably do fine. In general, I'd say yes. There's I don't think it's fair to say that picking everything up during a run would make you ill-equipped to do well. But it might not be optimal, which kind of brings us to how this game how this game actually handles the sort of skill ceiling slash. Most people can play Binding of Isaac and do okay, and reach a boss, and feel like they've made some progress. Like maybe they go a little further, but then they start losing a lot and they get frustrated. But they can get in. They can make progress. But what you find is that if you think about the items that you're given during the course of a run, the items that you have access to, it being a deck of cards, right? And it's shuffled up. Each card is a unique item, and that's the other thing. Like once you grab an item, I think once you have the chance of getting an item, like once you're shown that item in a treasure room or whatever, it's been pulled from the pool, and I think it's gone. I don't believe it goes back in if you grab it. Whether or not you grab it, I think it's out of the pool. So you'll never see that item again during the whole run. So if we think of all these special items as a deck of cards, you draw the top card, you look at it, you say, do you want to keep that or not? And what's interesting is, depending on, as you become more and more comfortable with the game, as you become better at shooting things and getting better at learning the mechanics and the minutia of control and blah blah blah, you might not want every item you find. And that sounds crazy at first, right? If all these items do good stuff, why not just grab everything, right? I'll just whatever happens. I'll just be bristling with items, and whatever weird build I end up with, that's fine. And I actually hit a point with this at some point. I hit a point with this pretty early on in playing the original game, which is what we're playing, where I started skipping certain items because I recognized them, because I picked them up and they kind of went against the sort of thing I was building towards, which is interesting because you can't have a plan when you start playing Binding of Isaac. All the items that you may get are randomized. So you can't fire up a game and go, okay, this run I'm going to go for max range, max damage, low speed. Let's go. Like, you just can't do that. Like, you can try and hope for that, and there are a small amount of tools that you will have at some point to kind of maybe weigh things in one of those directions, but you really have no say. You're drawing cards out of that deck and hoping that you get, one of 30, 40, 50, 60 plus items. So it becomes more about, and I think this is what's compelling for me, and there's still a very strong, I'm not sure if they're still strong, but in recent years, very strong speedrunning community for this, where it's based around races. Like you and a competitor each have the same seed, which means you each have the exact same maps, the exact same items, and whoever can optimize their run the best, meaning start making choices as to which items to take, and how to invest their coins, their bombs, and their keys in the most optimal run. And that's where you start to see the actual magic of this game shine. So right now my run, and I'm only in the second level. I don't really have a whole lot going on. I do have access to float around, which is huge actually. That's pretty rare still. The ability to have access to, like, these rocks would stop me normally, but because I have the head, they are no match for me. And there are pits and things later on that come up that help people fly over. So I'm probably going to want to hang on to this for a while, because it will give me access to a lot more items. But because of that, I'll be sacrificing this active slot, which is fine, because you can't really build around an active slot. Depends on the active slot. What I think where the choice really comes down to is the passes that you choose. But you can only make all these choices after you know what the items do, right? Like it's an interesting kind of chicken egg thing, where a new player basically cannot make these choices because they don't have the information to make these choices, so they don't need to make the choices. They don't even know that there's a choice to make. They just say, oh, it's an item, I'll grab it. Oh, cool, it makes me do this. Cool. But as they play and as they play more, and they start to see, well, hell, last time I took that item, that made my tiers have a lower range, and that kind of sucked for me because I wasn't able to hit things far away. So I had to get close to them and I took damage, and that felt weird. So next time I see that yellow drop, I'm not going to get it. Or, because everything is cumulative, and we haven't really seen a whole lot that really illustrates this, but there are things that will make your tiers big, will give them certain physical properties, like make them like rotate, make them move in direct and patterns and paths that will apply everything you've gathered to that. So we'll see some of that. Keep that in mind as we go forward. Kind of the additive element of these passive items that you're just constantly adding on to your character. Two last couple things to chat about will be the pills that you see in the right hand. So there are consumable items in this game. There are tarot cards, playing cards, and pills. I think that's the only three, and maybe some other thing, but I think that's the main three. If you've ever played Rogue or anything that dabbles in this, pills are the potions of Rogue, in that there's like 8 different pills, or 8 different effects, like health up, luck up, if luck is even in this, health up, gain health, do a thing, whatever. But they're randomized through the 8 different colored pills. So the blue pill here could do any of those 8. And the only way to find out what it does is to eat it. Okay, so now I know that the blue pill gives me full health. So there's like this sub-learning track in each run. Not only across many runs do I have to learn what items do, within each run I have to also keep in mind, okay, blue pills do this. There are some bad pills, just because that's the nature of the beast, and that's fine. But you won't know what they do until you try it. There's no way to find out what they do until you try it. I think there's maybe one passive item you get maybe that will tell you beforehand, but in general, you just gotta try it and see what happens. Alright, so let's move on. Yeah, so now my range is quite low now, but I have a very fast rate of fire. So if I feel comfortable staying up close, which I don't really, especially with this guy, I can get some shots in. Try to take out these flies. So, speaking of teaching mechanics, the other thing that this does, and this is more about game mechanics than sort of the meta progression of items and learning. Alright, so we have tiers up. So I think that's my, yeah, that unfortunately did nothing for me because my tier rate is already maxed, but still. Yeah, so the base mechanics of projectiles, like red projectiles, are usually bad for you. Anything that's on the floor that glows is bad for you. Like there's a lot of these very core things that we set, and they do kind of violate these as we go on. They kind of break these rules, which is fine. On a sort of cosmetic note, as I gather stuff, my appearance will change, and it will generally try to stack everything. I think especially in this early version, it's harder to do that because if two or more things modify that, Isaac's head, they both can't show at the same time. So, but you'll see as I pick things up, they'll also try and represent that on the character to the best that they can with the number of items that are coming out. These guys are jerks because you can only damage them when they're up. But it's interesting because it also establishes there are many items, many enemies. I really don't like this low range. See, I'm already establishing in my head that I don't want to pick up this yellow these yellow tiers in the future because I don't like the short range for how I generally play in this run. So this gave me poison touch. What does that even mean? Who knows? I believe it means that if anyone who actually hits me will take damage. And I have the wire hanger, and now I look a little sick. And there's like passives like that which aren't really a choice because there's not really a reason not to have that, right? Like if I get touched and that damages them, then most of the time I'm gonna be okay with that. You know, there's not gonna be a situation where I'm like, oh no, they hit me and thus that kind of ruined my plan. Oops. So yeah, there is a bit of a frame chug in this. This Flash is not meant to do this to the degree that they pushed it. Also, while we're poking and pointing things out, the trinket, which is the thing in the upper left here, this cursed skull. Actually, you can actually select it because it's Flash. That's fun. Is another passive thing that I have that I believe I can't get rid of it unless I get a different trinket. I forget what the cursed skull. The trinkets tend to be luck things. Like they'll make coins. Like there's one that's like the lucky coin, which will make coins appear more often. Like there are things that kind of modify all the random rolls that are happening, which are tools that let you kind of gently push the game, your run, in a direction that you'd like. Let's actually find the shop and we can, because I got a decent amount of money. Yeah, I would really like some range up at some point, because I have to be too close to these things to use them. Oh, I don't need to, I can, see, I'm so used to not having the horse that I forget that I can just fly over stuff. Okay, so there are these special rooms. We've seen these two of these now, which are additional tools that they're more choice points, you know, inflection points. For example, this room is like a sacrifice room, right? That will give you items based on how much health you lose on these spikes. So I would have to make the choice, make the gamble in my head that, oh, it's worth a heart or half a heart to see if I get an item out of it, right? To try and push that. My runs, I generally don't do that unless I have a way of getting back health. Because how I play, I hold on to my heart. I'm very worried about hearts and keeping them. This is a challenge room, like a gauntlet room, which I don't have access to because I don't have full health. But basically, you go in there, the door shuts behind you, and you fight a bunch of stuff. And if you live, then an item will appear, usually not a great one, but again, they give you all these tools to sort of push the run in a direction that you want. Now, it's not gonna be a guarantee, right? Like, there's no guarantee that a room will give you what you want, but it's the chance. Trying to remember which thing it just did that. So I think I was about to die, and it teleported me away. I forget which item is it. It might be the cursed skull, and the room has reset, and now I've died. I did not like the short range. So we're gonna do some more runs. Obviously, we're gonna do quite a few runs during this almost an hour in. We've only done one run. That's fine. We're gonna amp up the runs, and during streams like this, I'm going to be more talking, not playing, but, you know, sometimes playing also helps illustrate points, so. Yeah, in the end, I get shown what killed me, and the icons of the things that I gathered. These are his cool stuff. He leaves it all to his cat, Guppy. Goodbye. So, let's start a new run. So you are given these, I believe it's 3 characters to start with, 3 or 4. And another one of the things that you unlock through the massive achievement system are other characters. Now, By default, Isaac starts with no character, with no item, 3 hearts, 2 speed, 2 damage. And then you start to get other characters that tweak, other classes, basically, that play a little differently, mostly because they start with different stats and they come with an item. So let's play Magdalene, which is a very good... I forget if she's unlocked by default or not. She comes with a Yum heart. It's the item up here, which heals, I think, 1 health when you use it. So it helps maintain your run with a way of healing yourself without waiting for hearts to drop. We've been cursed, and as these things come up, I'll just explain them. Basically, there are a handful of curses that can be added to the level when you spawn in it. This is the Curse of the Labyrinth, which makes this level twice as big. That's why it says Basement XL. It takes the map from... It makes 2 maps, basically. This one and the next one, and then makes it one giant map that you can kind of walk through. Not really a curse, basically. Honestly, it saves time for me, because you get two treasure rooms, 2 bosses. But there are curses that make your map invisible, so you can't see where you're going. There are curses that make the items all question marks, so you don't know what you're picking up till you've got it, which is frustrating. Curses fall in the strife category, and not really in the ways to improve your run. Like, they're a thing you have to deal with. Like, games like this are usually in groups of things that can help you with your run and things that you're working up against, things that you're in conflict with. And curses are usually the latter. You're usually not happy to see a curse, and that's the thing that you have to work around and deal with. And there are a few other mechanics that fall into that category as well. All right. So this is a green one, which I think does the green explosion when he dies, as I recall. So there are strata of no, he was just beefier. Okay. Of levels, like there's the basement, and certain enemies will only appear there. Enemies will enemies will appear sort of in their strata. Usually, there are ones that appear in both, but like, I'm not getting enemies from the 3rd tier here yet. Obviously, I'm getting sort of these basic. So it takes 6 rooms to get my heart back. That's cool. Like, this room is, there's some very interesting design happening here. Like, it's basically, when it generates the level, it has a huge palette of rooms to select. So it's important to know that each of these rooms themselves are designed manually. Like this room was designed by hand. This was the room themselves. Each room itself is not. The contents of each room are not generated randomly. It's the placement of these rooms and how they're connected, which is what is random. But each room itself is designed by hand. Like, someone laid out this room this way. Someone laid out that room with those fires that way, and as one of the rooms that you can encounter. What's the point of a giant room full of fire? It's a little challenge, right? Like, it's, especially if it occurs in the early rooms, in the early levels, teaches you that fire burns you when you touch it. Not most games have that, but it's a good lesson to learn. Fire burn, baby. But it also teaches you that fire can sometimes, if you extinguish it, have items and coins in it, and you should probably do that when you see them. And it teaches you how to navigate a bunch of fire without getting burned, right? These are these little lessons that are actually very useful. Like, learning how to dodge things in this game is, frankly, 70% of the game, maybe 80%. So anything that sort of reinforces teaching you how to dodge is very useful. my heart is recharged, but luckily I haven't had a need to use it yet. Right, the room with the teeth is another special room where you go in, you take damage as you go in, and then there's usually a chest there and a few enemies, and some minor reward, another sort of way to kind of boost your run. So always, I hate these. And then so there are different. So we've seen items that are passive, that change how our tiers fire. We've seen items that let us fly around. Now we have what are called followers or pets, which basically will do stuff as you do stuff. This one fires little shots. Not basically every other shot it will do. But this may depend on the item, but it will not carry over all of my things. Okay, so this, yeah. Okay, so there was a little damage up plus tiers. Now I'm sitting at 2 damage and 2 rate, so 2 across the board. And there is a chance, and this is very good that it reinforces that there's a chance that to find decent little items, a very small chance, but a chance nonetheless, to find good items everywhere. Every fire, every pile of poop, every rock that you blow open can potentially have an item in it. Usually not a fantastic item that you would find in a special. Actually, only one room is unlocked. That's interesting. There's one of these that I hate. I'm trying to remember what it is. Now, so this is a good example of the learning system, and I'll actually kind of talk about this here. So, because you're not told what any of these things do, and I don't actually need to show it. There's a very good sort of Isaac cheat sheet, which is basically a huge grid of the items, and you just hover over it and it tells you exactly what it does. Which I only recommend after you've played the game quite a bit, to help you remember what stuff does. I think the real fun in playing without just looking at everything instantly is it's important to learn what these things do and what they can do, right? To learn what spaces these items can play in and what they can modify. So I think this is damage or speed. That's speed and range. Okay, cool. Yeah, so now I'm shooting a little faster, a little bigger. You know, they changed the size of the projectiles. The one that I don't like, I think it's yellow, will shuffle all of your stats up, which kind of sucks, depending on if you've been caring about your stats. I kind of want that. So this is a skeleton key that will open any key on, that'll open any lock, all the locks on this floor. I don't want to use a bomb to get to it necessarily. We'll see if there are anything that I care about lock-wise. So, you know, we do play in the hell / devil world in this game, as you'll see. We haven't really hit any of those elements, but there's, you know, as you imagine a game that has a very heavily Christian mother, there's going to be hell and parallels, and we're playing in that space. Let's do that. So we have one thing that we want to unlock. Yeah, so even in these first levels, like from what you've seen, it's taught me to look for stuff. It's taught me to look for, yeah, we have a few chests. It might be worth going to go grab that. So actually, you know, it also tries to train us on sequencing, right? I don't know what every room has yet, but if I want to get this could be a pack of 2 bombs, which I can get the bomb back that I just got. Have access to one more, and yeah, it's a thing that you don't need to do to succeed in the game, but you find yourself doing. You're like, well, what's the best way to sequence how I grab this stuff? And it's sort of passively teaching you this the whole time, because you're like, oh, I want that thing. Well, how do I get it? Well, I could go here and get the bomb. Like, it's like these mini challenges that it's giving you, to kind of think in the same way that you need to kind of think longer term in terms of your choices in items and your choices in characters and how you approach each level. It's very smart. So we're here. We'll also go look at the item shop, which we did not get to do last run because we died very unceremoniously, I will say. So the red chests have a much higher chance to have a bad thing in it, which is usually a bomb or spiders will come out. So I usually tend to avoid them. So we have our first sort of choice, not choice, but we have our first example of actual choice of using resources. This is primarily what the coins are used for. There's one other sort of vector for coin use, but this is the primary one, is buying stuff, which is usually a mix of normal items like the hearts and the bombs and special items that you may not know what they do. So you're like, well, what is this? What is this slot machine? Is it worth paying 15 cents for? Do I value that at 15 cents? Another thing that, maybe you have a ton of money. You're like, sure, I want to see what that thing does. Or maybe you're on a run and you could really use that item. You're like, oh shit, that would fit perfectly in with my build right now because I just happen to be going this XYZ. I'll grab that. So it's another avenue to sort of work on your build. If the item is in the price is in red, it's discounted. That's the only really thing I care about here, is getting that. We are good to start beating some bosses here. There are secret rooms. They are always in the gaps. You'll see on the map here. If there's no obvious room here, there's a chance there's a secret room there. There's probably one here and here. I don't really have a ton of bombs, so I'm going to save on that. If I had an item that let me do bomb effects, I might try and suss those out. But they're usually coins. Coins are the biggest reward in those. But yeah, all right. Let's focus here. Every boss has its own little strategy, like you would imagine. There's not a ton of bosses, so there's a pool of bosses, and they're also usually limited by what tier of the dungeon you're in. There are variations of bosses, like you can have color variations of bosses, like ones that are red or green or blue, that will have higher health, do more damage, are bigger and harder to hit, etc., etc. But because we're on the XL map, we have a boss after a boss, which is kind of cool. I don't remember what the 8-ball does. Okay, so yeah, right. So it increased my shot speed, which is now up to 4. No, I'm sorry, which is up to 3. Damage is up to 4. And it also dropped a tarot card. So tarot cards are consumable things that, unlike pills, will always do the same thing each time. The Wheel of Fortune, as I recall, drops a merchant, I think. Let me just... Yeah, it'll spawn a slot machine. Right, yeah. Okay, maybe we'll do a slot machine run, or some slot machine shenanigans here a little bit. But yeah, so you can always rely on them to behave the way that you expect. There are, I think, 12 or 14 of them. They are almost always good. Some of them are a little weird, like the ones that give you health, ones that will teleport you to the shop, ones that will teleport you to the beginning of the level. and you can only have one consumable, so only one pill, only one card. There are exceptions to this. Larry Jr. Okay. Pretty basic boss. We actually see what's actually pretty cool is that we establish these bosses in the early levels, and then they actually use them as like mini bosses later. Like Larry Jr. will appear as a mini boss in deeper in the basement, and there'll be variations of him that are a little harder. That have little, change up the. Yeah. So, in general, the items that you get after a boss fight, there's not usually a lot of choice. Like when you have the items from the treasure room, there are ones that may give you pause that you may that may screw up my build. But it's also interesting that the design here is that the items post boss are usually safe in terms of they won't mess up your build, they won't F up your stats. They'll just give you. It's usually health up, right? And a can of dog food, which is dinner, is indeed hit points up. So there is this built-in. There's no XP. There's no levels, but there is this sort of built-in progression where as you beat bosses, you will generally get stronger or get more health, which is important because yes, if you get very good at this game and you you never take hits, then that's irrelevant to you. But as a player, as you start to be fed these items as you beat bosses, you start to expect, okay, well, I gotta get to the boss because I might get a health item, because it pulls from a different pool, which is so it's enabling a player progression, but not like giving you XP or doing levels. Just basically, okay, you beat a boss, here's a chance. And again, it's a chance. Like, so much of this game is, pools of items or a chance to do something or, increases the chance that you're spinning so many plates of odds and probabilities, most of which you can figure out after a while. And of course, there is a massive wiki. There's, I'm guessing, still a pretty dedicated community that has unpacked all this stuff and figured out the exact numbers. But none of that is surfaced, and none of it needs to be surfaced, right? Like, you don't, at least when you're learning the game, you don't need to know that there's a 70% chance of getting a health up item after a boss. I don't know if that is correct, but let's say that it is. You don't need to know that. All you need to know, all the game is teaching you, is that, hey, as you beat bosses, there's a good chance you're going to get health. So not only does it give you, sort of extends your run by making you healthier, making you stronger. It's further impetus to get in there and beat that boss, not just for progression, but hey, I want to get that that heart. I'm feeling a little low at 3 hearts or 2 hearts. So, further little fun things that as we're talking about, that the game gives you tools to push and pull your odds and your run, are these post-boss rooms, which are devil rooms and angel rooms. Devil rooms, very, very interesting. Now here is the ultimate expression of choice in this game. Maybe not ultimate expression, but it's another example of sacrificing, in this case, sacrificing health for an item. Devil rooms almost always will require you to sacrifice a full heart, meaning I will lose that heart forever. In this case, I'll lose 1 heart for, I believe that's the Necronomicon, and then, or 3, I forget what they're actually called, but they're like temporary hearts. They have an actual name, like, not ghost hearts. Anyway, the blue hearts are temporary, and once they're gone, they're gone. So I can sack through those for, that's Guppy's Tail. I think it's a 9 lives thing. I will choose to do neither of these things, and then once you leave, you can't go back. So once and also once you pick one of those, I believe the other one goes away. So yes, we're dreaming of having a nightmare of when kids were shitting on me during school, which is just, no one needs that. Anyway, so that was both tiers, both levels of the first tier in one level, which was the curse. So now we're down to tier 2, which are the caves. It's worth noting that the music by Danny B is fantastic. He did the music for Super Meat Boy. Music in Rebirth is not by him, but still pretty good. I have a fondness for the original. So we have a pill here, and as we learn, we don't know what it does till we eat it. So let's find out what it does. That's not the right one. So that gave me, I think, 2 extra blue hearts. They usually will drop, but it just added to my thing. So now we know that white and blue are blue hearts, and the blue is full health. And as you saw, we can only have 1 consumable at a time, but you can always just drop. You drop the one you had, so you can use it to move on. Yeah. And most of the enemies are pretty. See, I have no way of getting to that. And you're like, well, how would you get to that? Why would they put an item there that you can't get to? Well, that would encourage me to look out for, or maybe try and manipulate the odds to get access to a flying thing, which is kind of hard to do. But it's good to know if I get something that lets me fly or walk over pits, which there is, I can come back here and grab that trinket. It is worth noting that this is the original game with the first and only expansion, the Wrath of the Lamb. A lot of these systems were added in Wrath of the Lamb. The trinkets, what else did they add? The playing cards, not the tarot cards, those were always in, but we might see that some playing cards that you can find that are consumables. Quite a few bits and pieces, a ton of items, obviously. Some other bits and bobs. These guys will explode when they die, so you always want them to blow up away from you. Oh, I did not get the item in the treasure room, which is very noob-like of me to not to do. Let's go get that. That's kind of my main. But actually, so this is an important thing to highlight here. I know that I could bomb this rock, assuming I do it correctly, to get 3 coins. So it's, and it may seem obvious, but it is an interesting inflection point. Like, it asks the player to ask themselves, is a bomb worth 3 coins to me right now? That depends. Maybe I go to the shop and there's a thing that I want. Then yes, maybe that's worth 3 coins. Do I have a ton of bombs? Then yeah, it's probably worth getting 3 coins. There's these tiny little kind of paths or directions that you can take, or choices that you can make. It's basically the game. Like, this game does a ton of, hey, is X worth Y to you? And you go, is it? No, yes, and off you go. And it does that pretty successfully across the board. Like, the sacrifice rooms ask you is health worth items. Is health worth the chance of an item? Yeah, it's a design theme that we see appear pretty consistently. I don't remember what this does, so that means we're gonna get it. Okay, so it's an activated item. I'm guessing it stops time. Yeah, it freezes time, which isn't super obvious, but I recognize when it puts everything in kind of a light blue motif, it freezes them, which is not as important to me as a health restorer, so we're going to leave that behind. This jerk. Alright, 1 second, take your time. Be right back. Okay, as promised, we're back. All right. Yeah, lots of things that I really wish I had my horse for at this point. So, and like there's a core sort of loop where you're like, first of all, do you have a key? Like you need at least one key per floor to get. This is kind of the pathways that I've sort of developed in my head. Is every floor do I have at least one key, because the key gets you to the treasure room except for the first floor. You also need a key to get into the shop, almost always. But that can be a secondary priority. So we're gonna shut up while we do this. Keep this down. I have a decent amount of blue hearts, so I'm not too worried, but that can go away real quickly. Okay. So there is an interesting, in terms of progression, they also have a few bosses, like the Four Horsemen, that was one of them, that also have achievements by beating all four, which unlocks maybe the Headless Horseman. I forget what it unlocks, but you know, there's these sort of mini progressions that are in the bosses and certain other items. Obviously, the cube of meat is a huge call out to Super Meat Boy. And each of the horsemen drop one cube of meat, and as you get more cubes of meat, they will form different. It'll form basically a little meat boy that will follow behind you eventually. But this thing will block shots. So if I'm really good at this game, which I am totally not, I will keep an eye on where this sort of meat shield is, and try and position enemies. You know, if I use my pet as an enemy, try and I'm not doing a good job of it. But so again, little skill ceilings for players to take advantage of, little areas that a player who's very sharp and very aware of the information that they have in their surroundings can use to their advantage. So we're going to be on the lookout for a key now, because we want to get to the item room. The item room is where our dreams come true. If it's not obvious, I don't think I mentioned it, but one of the only ways to get out of a room is to beat all the enemies in it. You can sometimes bomb the doors to leave, which costs a bomb, obviously, and but they'll respawn next time you go through there, and most of the time you'll be backtracking through level to get to an item room or a shop or whatever. So that may not be it won't solve the problem, but it'll get you out of there for a little bit. Control bomb. It's interesting. I've played the Rebirth so much at this point that it's taken some getting used to the art style of this, because it's sharper, because these guys are annoying in this configuration. Rebirth sort of takes a 16-bit approach to the graphics, which we'll see a little bit probably after this run. We'll switch over to Rebirth. This is really annoying. Now I have to just bomb these fuckers. So you can kind of, again, skill ceiling. You can kind of also diagonalize. It's a good verb. Your shots. If you I don't want to do it around these spikes, but if you sort of get momentum, because the momentum of your character is taken into account of, let's see, I can kind of do a diagonal shot if I'm going in that direction while hitting down, but of course I might just have to take the hit for the heart here to get in range. Like once you get to a room that has less spikes, I'll show that off. Again, a skill ceiling thing, right? Like as you learn that, you can it's not taught to you, it's not explained anywhere in the game, it's not mentioned anywhere in the game, but you learn it as you play with it. As you play with the systems, you're learning these little tricks that are definitely by design, that you're not finding exploits that only you. So yeah, if I see how it kind of it kind of bent towards the end there because it had my angular velocity is being taken into effect. I think it's angular. Anyway, whatever, linear versus angular, it's being taken into account there. I think angular would be if this was 3D, but anyway. And you learn to love and hate different enemies because they're different kinds of annoying. No keys though. So I think what we're going to do, so we've been given a tool to try and solve this problem. Right now, I want at least one key so I can have access to the treasure room to try and get an item that will make my run easier. I have the Wheel of Fortune tarot card that I picked up. Which drops a slot machine, or I'll just wait till he drops like this. So when we will save that, yeah, problem solved. I'll still do it though, because this will be our last run here in this version of Isaac. All right, so yeah, let's do it here. Okay, so it dropped. So this was a Wrath of Lamb thing. These fortune slot machines. So there are slot. This will either give me tarot cards, trinkets, or very useful advice. Still, Stephen lives. They'll give little hints to secret things. I might just bomb this and move on. Yeah, I know. Alright. It itself had a troll bomb and a heart in. Okay. But there's also a slot machine, which you drop one coin into, and it will spit out a heart. Let's go get the treasure room item. A heart, or a bomb, or a active bomb that will hurt you, or a spider. Like, it can be good or bad. But it's basically the thing. Like, in that situation, I had the tools to maybe get what I was looking for, so I could move on. The miter, I don't remember what this. I think it has some form of damage protection to a point. It's pretty interesting, and maybe we will see this a little bit more in the other Isaac. That you can get some crazy builds going depending on the stuff that you've unlocked. The items that you find at level. You know, you could get, damage up and have your projectiles be giant circles and have them also explode when they hit and have those drop pools of acid when they, there's just all these very interesting additive things. You can also have crappy runs, because this game so heavily relies on probability and that deck of cards I was talking about earlier. Of things that you can get. Sometimes you get kind of a crappy run, and despite all of your mitigating, all of your choices, you just didn't quite get there, and it definitely doesn't feel as bad. I say that now, but after, for me, sometimes a 30 to 40 minute run, you're like, well, shit, I just spent all that time and I ran out of options. But then you just start a new run, right? And then it's a whole fresh world. It's like baseball, where the start of every season always feels fresh and new, despite how terrible the last one was, at least to baseball fans. It's the same thing. Like, you instantly forget all the bad things. Like, yeah, new season, let's do this. Let's see what weird array of items I'll get this time. And usually, especially in the early going for new players, you will not beat the boss. You will not get to the end. You will not win. You will die. But much like in our good friend Dark Souls, dying is teaching. Dying, as long as dying is fair, dying is a teaching tool. you know, yes, you didn't make it to the boss, but you learned how this enemy works, or now you finally got to try that item that you've seen a few times, and you want to know how it works. Now you've figured out how you'll use that item in the future. It's this constant evolution of learning bits and pieces that is it is crucial to the formula here. And honestly, what a lot of roguelikes miss, and that come out, they miss. You can't just have a game be random for random sake of being random. Like, that's not fun. Like, to go, oh, there's a chance I'll win. I might get a cool thing. I might get garbage. Oh, yeah, I got garbage. Oh, well. That's not... For me, that's not fun. I like it to be more middle, where most of the stuff I get are all pretty good. It's how I use them together. We got bombs to spare, so let's check out what this orange pill does. That's a teleport. Okay, cool. Not using that again. Oh, these guys. Okay, so these are an enemy that I've certainly learned to respect, because they will see you from any of the 4 cardinal directions and do a room-wide blast in that direction. And something that they did pretty well in this, and pretty well in the next one, is that they will iterate on this by making versions of those that are slightly worse, but you've already learned their little trick. This has got to be a Super Bomberman homage. I believe that there's no way it's not. See, I remapped these, and I forgot how I remapped them, so I'm missing some of these. Probably a better way to do that, but there's a slot machine. We have not seen the item room, so let's go find it. We don't have a key for it yet, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't know where it is. If there's a slot machine there, we might get a key out of it. These are the ones that will, instead of blowing up when they die, will shoot a barrage of projectiles out. Yeah, I also forgot how the frame rate, how awkward it was. And that's not making excuses. I'm also not playing very well tonight, but just had forgotten how chuggy it was. So we're kind of just going. So this is a good example of what's compelling about each run. Like I don't want to say the drama of the run, but you know, my goal of this floor is to get a key, to get to the shop / to get to this treasure room. There are items that I could have picked up before that would have given me a better chance at getting keys. There's a way to like sashay through these, which I just failed at. Let's try and sashay. I do have my heart thing here, so yeah, if you're good, you can diagonally move through the spikes and not take any damage. I'll always be doing this in case a fly comes out, especially in close quarters. Okay, that was worth doing. Didn't. So we got a key out of it. And again, slot machines are the ultimate expression of this game and chance, in that every time you use the slot machine, there's a chance it blows up. So, you know, do you risk? I mean, at that point, if you're dropping coins into it, it's like, well, okay, but do you risk? There's some risk in constantly using it, because it'll blow up eventually, which isn't. Oh my god! See, it's like the game knows that we're talking about it. We see our tiers from the last run that we have that we've learned that we don't want to use because it reduces our range, and that's important to us, at least in these 2 playthroughs. So we're gonna all that work to get the item to say no, but that's fine because it was the chance, it's the probability of an item that could be useful to us that ended up not being. That's fine. Let's fight war. So we're gonna have, this is 2 out of 4 horsemen. And it did sort of balance them to be more the horsemen, because you unlocked them and they wanted to make sure that you saw them. So, Jesus. So you do see them more often than not. At least, I forget if these were expansion or, I don't think they were. Hey. I must have my friend. So we got our second piece of meat, which I believe will give us a head that follows us around now. Yeah. And he also shoots little projectiles. We have half a health. This will probably be the end of us. Unless we can find some hearts quickly. So we now have a stream of three different streams of projectiles happening here. My pet, the head that's rotating around me, and me. And this is a thing that can happen pretty often as you're making interesting little builds. Is different sources of these damage. I'm getting a lot of these spike things, which I hate. Luckily, our thing just unlocked, so we can get some health back. Start to maybe stabilize here. At this point, I'm basically just playing it. Trying to think of other things that we can kind of unpack. We've already spent an hour and a half doing this, so we've hit a lot of the points. And once we get to the next game, we can talk about some more stuff. But this also, you know, let's just kind of really kind of talk about why this is. That was dumb. That was just dumb. There is, in general, no like enemy damage. You can't get them to hurt each other usually. That'd be kind of cool, but you could also easily exploit that to the point where you become significantly easier. Don't walk on the spikes. How can I get hit by those guys? Oh, we're scrubbing it up here. Oh, this leads to nowhere. So yeah, as we're getting further down, the rooms get a little harder. The enemies get a little more frantic. They start to mix in things that jump around awkwardly or have different movement patterns, or yeah. Still, you know, it's like I feel the about this in a very similar way that I feel about Dark Souls, in that I have always felt like it was fair to me. Usually, like I usually know what I did, like where I fucked up in run, or where I took too much damage. Like the damage is usually an avoidable thing. It's very rarely do you feel like the game has put you in a position to take damage, because it you know, almost all the enemies have good telegraphs for things that they're throwing at you. You know, Very rarely will you just suddenly take damage and say, well, where'd that come from? You'll know. Okay. We'll have that for the item room when we get to it. If we're really lucky, we'll get to see Mom tonight. Shouldn't say lucky. If we appropriately use the tools we're given and do our best and try and make the optimize our situation, we will see Mom. The arcade is basically a fun little. We have a nice 16-bit version of the song. Where there'll be a slot machine or the fortune teller, blood bank, which again asks you the question: is your health worth money? How much of your health is worth money? It lets you turn health into money. Or if you aren't going to use it, lets you blow it up and maybe get a heart out of it. In this case, we're going to get. I want to actually see what's in the shop, so I'm just gonna. The burn that like makes coins come out of fire more often, I think. This guy will do a shell game. It's usually for money or hearts, but I usually just blow them up, to be honest. So, oh no, right. As you collect coins, there's a chance to get bombs. That's what the bombs came out of me getting coins. I don't think I actually talked about this, but this is a very cool mechanic that just for the sake of your tools during combat or during an engagement with enemies is, I'm trying to find a place to use it. You can shoot your bombs after you place them, which I totally missed there. So I'll place it, I can shoot it. It applies physics to them, so you can actually, if you don't feel comfortable dropping a bomb in front of someone right there, you can drop it and then kind of shoot it off towards them. And hope for the best. I don't remember what this does. I think these are like eye toothpicks that hold my eyes open and do something. Yeah, increase my shot, and that's a very uncomfortable looking situation there, but we have a higher shot speed, so it's all worth it. And these runs, as you can see, especially, I mean, I've been pausing and talking quite a bit, but they're an investment in time, right? Like, you're not, these aren't just things that, and they can be over quickly sometimes, but you're usually, yeah. So my burnt penny is giving me seems like 50 or 60% chance to get a bomb after picking a coin up. All right, so the store. This is boring. I've basically seen the map. Paying 15 cents for a map of this level is not great, which is what that is. So I will say thank you, but no thank you. And we will proceed to the boss. Depths 2. This might be Mom. Might be the first instance of Mom, actually. So, Mom being the actual, well, odds are not actual, but the representation of the mom that threw you in the basement. Yep, here we go. So this can be a bitch of a fight. So we're gonna just do it and not talk. If we can help it. What's happening? I don't think that was enough. Why did I grab that? Okay, we did it. We beat Mom, but we keep going. And we got her underwear, which is range up. Some of the items make sense in terms of the attributes that they give you. Some are just silly things that are in there. So yeah, so that was 4 doors in every cardinal direction. Mom is the foot that comes down as well, which will do damage to me and hurt enemies around where it lands. But yeah, so hitting Mom there is actually a big milestone when you're first playing the game for certain unlocks, like reach Mom without doing certain things, or reach Mom without taking damage, reach Mom killing a certain number of enemies. It's one of the first major milestones. And now we're in utero, which is a little squeamish, I guess, at the implication. I'm not comfortable enough with my sashaying skills to go get that. There is, and this will actually kind of tie us into, wow, these aren't dying as fast as I thought they were. The actual level progression is, that's not the right button. So the original game, it was Mom, and just spoilers, I guess. Like if you want to be surprised by Binding of Isaac, I mean, you're probably not watching this if you want to be surprised. I don't need to tell you what the bosses are actually. So there's Mom, which we just saw there. There's a second boss, which is which will be Utero 2. So the next level they'll be in. I think it's the next boss. Or is it the next one? I think it's the next one. And then there's I think those were the only 2 in the base game when it first came out. And then so Edmund has this penchant for adding content to his stuff. Almost always for free, but sometimes not. Sometimes there are expansions. This guy who will do what you do. It's kind of cool, except for using items and stuff, obviously. I must have something that shows me the boss icon on the map. That's not by default. I forget which of my many gadgets and gizmos aplenty that is doing that for me. Oh, I'm just taking damage. And the damage does ramp up. In the first few tiers, most hits you take are half a health. I forget when it starts to ramp up to 1 heart per hit, but it's definitely happening right now. Oh god. Green bomb things are rough. Hurt for my trouble. So yeah, so as there is some scaling, not scaling per se, but the game is also, in addition to enemies that are more complicated, they're also doing more damage to you. Another one of our friends here. Ah, that's stupid. Okay, let's just. That's how you're supposed to deal with him. Really. If you don't want to faff around with doing patterns of fire. Oh god, these guys. Yeah, okay. Alright, so I was killed in some warm place. Here's all the crap I got. So, and there is, yeah, so level progression wise, started off with 2 main bosses. I think it's 2 main bosses. They added a third, added a fourth, they kept adding layers down that you can go with some branching. And they also did this, and that's kind of what you're seeing here with this. It's a ripped up Polaroid that I'm actually reassembling. This is the end game stuff for Wrath of Lamb, where you need to. Oh man, I don't remember what the actual process of stuff you had to collect. But you had to collect a certain number of items or do a certain number of kill certain bosses basically to assemble this Polaroid, which would give you access to the final boss. Also very interesting are these challenges, and Rebirth has these too, and we'll see that. So each of these, actually, I'll start one. I won't spend the whole time going through one, but each of these puts you in a. It basically starts you in a certain game state every time. Certain character, I think it's always Isaac, but they'll either give you an item or set a certain rule. Like 9 deaths. I think 9 deaths always starts you with the. Yeah, it starts you with a specific item that sort of drives how you play. In this case, this item, Guppy's head, I think it is, which you can get normally in a playthrough, but this challenge starts you off with it. You start off with 1 health, as you see in the upper right, but you have 9 lives. So, and I think if you gain hit points up, those get lost between lives. So it's a little bit of a challenge, right? Like, how far can you get? And I believe killing Mom or the next boss is the goal there. There's no like beat the end boss. It's like get to one of those 2 milestones. I forget which. And we'll look at some other ones like Meat Forever. I think this starts you off with a Meat Boy. Yeah, you just have him. In general, and I'll check this. I'll verify this by finding it. But the trade-off for getting access to one of these cool items from the very beginning is that you don't get any items, or you get no treasure rooms. You still get items from bosses, but as we discussed, that pool is a lot smaller, and it's usually health or damage. You don't get any of the special stuff. So your whole run is now built around, but you do get shop items. You still get shops. So there is a pool of stuff that you can use to make your run easier, but it does not include treasure rooms. So yeah. Oh yeah, and the library is a fancier shop that gives you I think 1 or 2 books to choose from. Let's just see what boss it is, and then we'll call it. Yeah, Meat Boy is cool. He basically goes and hurts them for you. He can't die. He's very handy. He's the end result of collecting all 4 cubes of meat from the horseman. Okay. So, it actually shows me that the challenge gave me these 4 pieces. So, why do these challenges? Well, just like all the achievements, beating bosses, hitting certain milestones, each of these challenges gives you a certain item into your item pool. So it's not only does it give you the motivation to do them to get more items, but it also gives you it shows off certain cool items that you can look forward to. And the items that it unlocks are not the items that it features. Like Guppy's head, I think, is unlocked through something else. So it's not like by beating the game with Guppy's head you earn Guppy's head. It's some other item. They're all kind of connected. So it's showing off how a particularly interesting item works and why it's beneficial, and then letting you play in that space only with that item. As we said, no treasure rooms, with the drive of eventually hitting that milestone to get the achievement to then unlock the item, to unlock whatever item that it will give you. So you're always expanding your pool, or always wanting to expand the pool of items you get. It's this constant drive of, like, even now, like I have not completed this game. I'll be very honest about that. I'll show you what in the base game, and as you see, there's each character has their own ending as well, which is an achievement, which adds an item to the item pool, right? Like almost every bit of progress you make in this game flicks a new item into the item pool that you might see. It'll tell you. It'll say the 6-sided die has been added to the basement. Like it will say, right? Like yeah, like it'll. I unlocked the horseman. I unlocked Megafetus. Got these tail. These are all things that will come up and tell you things have been added. You unlock characters. I've only unlocked half the stuff in this goddamn game. I've spent, and we'll look at the Steam profile real quick. And you know, I've died 154 times, only killed Mom 23, and got that many items. So I certainly have not seen all that the base game has to offer. There's still a lot more I can do. As you see, there's challenges that I still haven't finished. But yeah, there's a constant. It's just constantly evolving, right? Like every time you accomplish something, just for a moment, disregarding all the things that you learned about the game and the items that you encountered during that run, if you do well, then you've added one more interesting piece to the puzzle for all of your future playthroughs, right? Like it's this ever-expanding, complicated, weird, gross flower, just thematically, that you could technically play for a long, long time. And it doesn't feel, you know, it doesn't feel synthetically or artificially long. It's not like, you know, this is not like an old school JRPG where they're like, well, we need to get 50 hours of this. Let's make them grind out to do like it's rewarding to do this because you're given a decent amount of tools to try and accomplish the goals. Yeah, you might get screwed over, and you might, well, not screwed over, but you might get some bad luck and not get quite the drops you need, or you know, whatever. But you learn, right? Like that's why it's been so compelling, and why I was very excited about this. The more I played it, I got really into it. I was a big proponent of it. I was always talking it up around other game designers and enthusiasts. Like it's yeah, you know, it's definitely it's not quite wrap up yet. Let's go look at the other one. Yeah, and I'll show. See how many hours I put into this. So I put 70 hours in this game, which is not that much actually. There might be some that might not be quite correct because there was some. I'm trying to remember if I did any. There was a way to play it outside of Steam briefly. I don't remember. Anyway, so that's not, you know, but for I think it was like a $20 or $30 game. It you know, you can't beat that much value. And I haven't finished it. I could easily devote time to. Honestly, the only reason I stopped playing it was because they put out Rebirth, which we will look at now. I don't need Key to Joy anymore or Joy to Key because this one, Rebirth, natively supports controllers. We do need to set up the full screen though. Yeah, on Nicholas, I think it's the same intro.
And his mother
Yes.
lived alone.
Why am I getting Chivos? Do they add stuff in? Oh. This is still on. Yep, they must have added milestones that I hit. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff waiting for me that I haven't seen yet, I'm guessing.
Isaac and
Let's... Okay. So this is Found HUD? Oh yeah. So this is written. This was developed in C++ by Nicholas, who did. I want to say. Oh yeah, they worked on the 3DS Cave Story. They worked on 1001 Spikes. Yeah, okay. So they did some. They were kind of an indie dev with definitely some experience and some pull. So a very accomplished very accomplished, but very competent and very, very talented to do the engine for it. Brand new engine. So let's, without really talking too much, we've already seen some things that we recognize, the challenges, which there are a lot more. These are ones that were added. I don't remember any of these ones at the bottom. Custom challenges. Oh, okay. Native controller support. A ton more HUD options. We'll look at some of those. Oh. But let's start a new run so we can instantly quite a few more characters. So, but not brand new, right? Like lots of characters that are the same. Like we have Magdalene. But we have more information. Like our current win streak is -10, which means we've gone 10 games without beating Mom. And also what endings we've unlocked with her in the upper left here. I won't, just for the sake of spoilers, explain what all those mean, but the heart means I've beaten Mom or a version of Mom. There's a greed mode, there's you get to hell, you get to heaven, there's a lot in this game. There's someone I haven't even unlocked yet. I don't remember if they've added stuff to this since I've last played it. Let's just go with Isaac. I don't want to go to... we have different modes we can play through. There's greed mode, which is actually a very cool mode that I'll show off maybe to end the stream. Hard, which makes things harder, but I think the rewards are better. And also this very cool idea of the seed, where if you let's start a run, and every run that you begin will have a seed that you can share with your friends and say, hey man, here's my seed, here TMXZRLY, which will be exactly the same map, same items, everything, I think. And they can go try it out and then try and do better than you did. And this is also engineered, and this has gone through some updates as well. This didn't come out looking like this, but it's pretty close. This was, interface-wise, a lot more targeted at the... I forget what extra HUD is, let's see. Okay, that's the timer. I don't know what charge bars are. It was targeted at the speedrunning community, or the streaming community, not necessarily speedrun, but the active Isaac streaming community that developed around the game, to give them a timer, things they found, just kind of a ways to instantly see where you're at. Okay, so already, it's so also gone from the sort of flash animation style to a very 16-bit. They could have leaned hard into the Link Between Worlds sort of thing, but they I like the middle ground that they found. Also the art is and the effects and the particles is very well done. So same premise though. We start in the basement, and but it's a lot smoother. Like just having gone from playing the Flash version to this version, it's so smooth, less choppy, less chuggy. And support for different room sizes. You may have noticed in the previous game, all the rooms were one screen size wide. This one, as we just saw, was a lot longer, and it scrolled, and it did it in a very natural feeling way. So I'd be curious, this is probably something that I should have looked up, but what the content difference is between the two. I believe that's fun. If I had a lot of bombs, we could get to those things. They did get a little more, say, zany, but the pool of interesting situations that you are in terms of the level layout get a little more wacky with Rebirth, and the subsequent, I think it's Afterbirth is the name of the expansion that came out for it. Enemies in the treasure room? What is this? Yeah, there's some things. But this does do the same thing that you know, in a much more kind of tight map, shows you the information you need. But this does do the thing of where you not necessarily telling you what everything does. I mean, in the case of damage up, sure, but activated items and whatnot and passives won't always tell you exactly what to do. We have our old friend Larry Jr. here. He's a kind of a staple. They went a little more metal with the soundtrack, which is fine, but it's not meant to be. So, can't have it all. So I've just unlocked an item. I don't know why. Let's usually the achievements will tell you what you did to do it. I mean, not so much in the... Oh, right, there's a co-op mode that they added with the expansion. Okay. Yeah, what were the... There was a stream of achievements that came up when I first opened the application, and then they went away because I hit something on my controller. Burning basement, flooded caves, Okay, so these were already all here. These are just formalized achievements for them. Okay, so maybe not a ton of new stuff. I don't remember these though, so maybe some. Okay. Cool. I believe development has actively stopped on this. I honestly haven't been following it in the past year or so because he essentially said, we're done. We've done so much content. We've added so many items and so many different things. Let's close the book on it. But it was also interesting when this was one of the first, not the first, but it was notable for being a mature game that came out for 3DS. I think it's also out for Switch. That Nintendo would historically shy away from putting a game like this on one of their platforms, just because of the content, not because of the. I mean, that's, you know, they were usually not into doing mature content on, and this is not like hardcore sex or nudity or anything. It's just gross and violent and a little might have uncomfortable subject matter. And we won't do a full playthrough. A little bit more. Let's see how far we can get. But it is interesting that the core. It is the same game. Like, let's be honest. It's. I can pull up a bigger map. Yeah. But this is the same game. Like, it plays the same. I'm using the same skill set. I'm getting hurt by spikes. Oh my god, that was embarrassing. See, I wasn't paying attention when I was talking. But yeah, I think this was sort of billed as this is what we wanted Isaac to be. This was the goal with Isaac. I'll write ahead like gold or coin poop. Because sure. Put bombs in my bombs. I'm guessing my bombs. Actually, what are the because I didn't remap them. I don't remember what buttons do what, so we will have to. That's not bombs. That's bombs. Okay. Just happened to find one of these secret rooms. just how good I am. But yeah, this was not intended to be a sequel to the original one. This is its final form, right? This was the best version of the game. Like, I would never say to anyone, "Oh, go play Binding of Isaac original," because they can get all of the content from, and I believe the other issue, I didn't experience this game from the beginning because there was a way to bring over your save from the original game, and it would maintain what progress it could. So I didn't go through the onboarding process of this version because it brought over most of that this area from the sorry. Talking and avoiding spikes is not easy. Yeah, so I didn't get to see how it did unlocks, but I believe it's very similar. I believe it was intended to be more or less the same. This will probably not go well. And I will do my very best to not die, but start by getting rid of his little friends here. Build. Cool. But let's look at some of the other modes. Yeah, same thing. Like, I don't get more information about the items. You can kind of see my sweet stats here. It does give you this bestiary though, which is nice. And when you beat the second boss, or the not final boss, but the canonical boss of the previous game, it would actually go through and give you all the names of all the enemies. But here, we actually have some sweet stats. They did not do this in the previous one, where it would tell you them and how many you've encountered, how many you've died to. It's kind of cool. There are a lot of different little things in this game. And these aren't even the bosses, these are Fat Sack, Half Sack. I wonder if they have the bosses in here. Yeah, they do, okay. Well, I won't sit here and spoil this. Same thing from before, all of the endings. So yeah, so these two pieces of information are the same thing it tells you in game. Its name and then what it does. In general, Edmund was pretty open about the design process. He has a blog that's updated, at least when this was in development and released and post-release support. He was pretty active with updates about it and talking about design choices. And as I recall, he said that they tried to make it a little more obvious what stuff did in Rebirth, but still part of it is, as we spoke at length before, is learning about what the things do and playing with it in the game and seeing how it interacts in the game is a huge part of it. So let's close off with. Right, they got very kind of Elder Scrollsy or Bethesda-esque with their mod support, where they were very open about it. There's the daily challenge, which is kind of cool. Right, yeah, okay. So like Splunky et al. We won't do that though. So let's do one run on Greed, and then we'll call it. Greed is basically a horde mode, endurance mode, which is kind of a lot of fun. It's a really interesting way to see a lot of items at once to kind of learn about what they do and which ones work for you. You basically get an item per a free item, and then So yeah, it's a sort of a horde mode endurance mode where you have to kill the things in time. And if you don't kill them in time, then it'll just keep spawning them up to a point. And then you see in the on the left, the upper left, it says 3 of 10. That's what kind of what level of enemy progression I'm at. So I'm not penalized for not killing them in time, but it will get hectic if I don't. And I can stop. I can pause it if I want to, but I will get hurt by the spikes. So is it again the Isaac question of it, how much is it worth to you? Is it worth the health to stop and take a breath? Right now, I think the answer is no. Usually the answer is no. Okay, so we did the 8 at 10. We get a huge item shop, which we can spend a coin to recycle, which means to kind of shuffle all of these. We will take this. I remember this being decent, and it'll automatically add something on that slot. So this is a great way to kind of see. Oh, I should see. I forgot my plan. I always buy a key with the money. So I can get this item here. We're forgetting things. Alright. Now we go to the 2 boss fights. Yeah, 9 and 10 are boss fights to resolve. Maybe more time to deal with them. We'll have a key. If you don't beat the boss in time, then it'll spawn the next boss, so you gotta be ready to deal with that. Ah, that's done. Oh, yeah. Why am I walking over the bread stuff damaging it? I'm just making some choices here. Should be able to not die to Larry Jr., assuming he said that almost walking to Larry Jr. Let's use some bombs we could be using. Or not. I didn't want to. Shit! I should have died there. I think my item martyr thing kept me alive somehow. I do not have the damage right now to do this effectively. Here, Larry. Thank you. So yeah, so you do this. The right loop is to get a key for. At least buy 1 key so you have access to this. Okay, which is right. This is bomb, and that's gonna be. Well, let's just learn it now. Okay, yeah, it's left trigger. Then you go to the next one. So I think there's 1 for each tier of dungeon. There's a greed. Yeah, 7, and then there's an end. So just like before, you get 1 freebie, and then you have 1 with a key. So if I spent my money wisely last time, which I did not, I would have enough for. That was not what I wanted to do. rusty as shit. One bikey. I just have a milk now. Okay. Cool. So this definitely distills down the game. I mean, it does shuck away some of the more interesting elements in terms of the choices you need to make, but it is a very cool way to make the item choices, right? Like because you're basically getting 2 items per access to at least 2 items per level of this. So I believe that the pool that those pull from are roughly the same you would get during an annual run. So it gives you access to the, to make those same choices, but in a very streamlined, fast-paced format of the greed mode. I should be using my AoE thing because it does recharge pretty often. I shouldn't walk into that red stuff. I was just about to do that. Okay, so boss fight next. I want to get some health. Some dog food would be nice. Or as it's called, dinner. Okay. Larry again. You are definitely at the mercy. So in a mode that basically is built around killing things fast, you are at the mercy of getting items that may or may not do damage up or tiers up. So if you get a bunch of weird situational stuff, you might be kind of a little more awkward to kill things fast, so a little more challenging. But it's a side mode. It's a weird fun thing. It's not what the game was originally built around. So I can support you both, to be honest. Technically, I don't have any bombs, but you're. What should I say to give this guy a bomb while he charges at you? Nothing. I'm just not doing the damage to this thing. Oh yeah, whenever I'm taking damage, I'm getting a charge on my item, which is I think what the actual item martyr does. Which is a very cool thing to try and build around, actually, if you can think about it. That you know when you'll take damage, you'll get a recharge, so maybe get a thing that has an ability that may... Yeah, there's a lot of different combo pieces that you can set up based off of the weird items you may get. There's also a very satisfying sort of zen state you get, not while you're just like talking about the game like I am, but trying to weave through encounters in the most optimal way can be hectic and satisfying at the same time. At least for me. As our good friend Jack says, your mileage may vary. Why'd I do that? I meant, okay, well we activated the optional next boss fight. I'm trying the actual thing here, not these little Sup, ghosts? Actually, I think we have to kill them first. Yeah. Inadvertently asked for a challenge. Now he does the second mode where he'll get angry and hang out up here. Yep. So what does that actually do from? Oh, that gives me the devil room. Right. Where right now that would, I believe, kill me. I don't remember if it keeps you at 1 if you lose a heart piece, but pass, hard pass. I'm not sure this current build will get us to a place where we can beat green mode, but. And they also get a lot better with the, oh, right. Now we got triple I, which is pretty good. There are a few things that they added in Afterbirth, which one of the power-ups, like, made your shots go diagonally away from you, which was actually really annoying. I think that one actually makes them go, you know. There are definitely a few more items where I was less thrilled to see them, because unless they were for a specific build that was kind of I happened to be in, they were more of a hindrance than anything else. That's part of we have strength, which is damage up. So my triple shot has also resulted in a. Let's just use this now. I think this damage everything, or no, it gives me damage up. Hence the bigger, angrier shots. Oh boy, that's not what you want to see. More of it. Alright. So, let's wrap it up here. Yeah, so so I hope I've been able to kind of articulate what's interesting, compelling, and important about Binding of Isaac. You know, it definitely meets a few. It definitely meets a few kind of ground baseline bullet points in terms of what makes a good game, and that is one of them. Of course, is the cliche, but it's true. The easy to learn, hard to master sort of thing, where the actual core game is not hard, right? Like you saw, it's dodging things and shooting things, and the first few levels of that are pretty straightforward. Like, you don't need to be thinking about item management or are keys worth health or any of that. You know, it's pretty straightforward. But to get not just good at dodging and shooting, but also to get good at understanding when to do certain actions is a big part of the learning process, and that's a very important level of depth that not very many games have. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, yeah, I was just I dripped some brief kind of bullet points I want to touch on. I touched on most of them during the actual stream, so yeah, you know, this, the kind of the final thing I have is learning to adapt to luck, and how you use it, and that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from this is from Binding of Isaac, and why I feel like other games really haven't taken advantage of this formula is the same reason why a game like Netrunner, Android Netrunner, now discontinued, which is the space that it was playing in, and I'm not as huge a fan of that game as some, but basically understanding that the game you're playing is built on a foundation of probability. different pillars of probability that do different things, but a run turns into how do I make the best of what I'm given, right? Like how do I take what I've been given, which I can't control for the most part. How do I take what I've been given and make the most of it? It's actually kind of a fun little like life like morality lesson, right? Like, not to get too philosophical or metaphysical here, but it's a good lesson. Like, it's a good thing to learn to think about how do I can't control what I get. I can't control the items I get. I can't control the order in which I get them. But I'm going to take what I get and form the best build that I can and give it a shot, right? Like, I'm going to position myself to do the best that I can, and if I get there, great. It's actually a very positive. I don't know if it was intended that way. I'm not going to say that Edmund is a philosophical master and this is all part of it, but and other games that do this as well is like, there's no guarantees, but how you use the luck that you have. And unlike life, this game gives you lots of tools to tweak your luck a little bit, right? Like, if you prioritize items, or you get to learn items, or try and use items that give you better chances of this, or increase your chance of these items appearing, or give you more keys or whatever, then you can kind of tweak your luck a little bit. So it's a very good game. But this is obviously Rebirth is the superior version of it. Highly recommended that everyone if any of this sounds remotely interesting, pick it up. It's usually cheap. Steam sale's coming next week, so it'll be on sale then. Don't feel worried about not doing what getting super far or dying all the time. Just play around with the items, explore the space that's there, and try some challenges, and just keep adding fun little things to your pool. And I wish more games would take the right lessons from this and apply it, but I haven't really seen anyone that do that has done that. So anyway, that was a deep dive, I'd say, of Binding of Isaac. 2.5 hours. We dove pretty deep. Let's come up with the surface and call it a stream. I really appreciate you if you kind of sat through this whole thing, and any of these points sound salient to you. I appreciate you spending time hearing me ramble on about one of my favorite games, and I hope if you haven't checked it out yet, that you check it out, and shoot me some feedback if you agree with anything I said, or you disagree, or you think this is the worst game in the world and you want to tell me why, then reach out to me on Twitter or Twitch, or let me know what you think. I'd love to hear more opinions about this, but pretty good game. So that'll do it for tonight. Thanks for joining me, and tomorrow is our Shadowrun Dragonfall campaign, part 5. I think we're on part 5 now, so come check out that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye!